The landing pods hissed open, releasing a cloud of steam into the purplish atmosphere of I-7. Caden Thorne stepped out, his enhanced combat boots crunching against the crystalline terrain. The twin suns of the planet cast elongated shadows, creating an ethereal interplay of light and darkness over the mineral-rich landscape. "Welcome to our humble hunting grounds, Earth Warrior," a melodic voice rang out, catching his attention. Caden turned and froze as two tall, athletic figures emerged from behind a rocky outcrop. Their shimmering blue skin glowed under the dual sunlight, smooth and exotic. They had to be sisters, given their strikingly similar features, and they moved with a fluid grace that suggested years of combat training. "I'm Cloa," said the slightly taller one, her silver eyes sparkling with mischief. Her fitted combat suit accentuated an athletic build that could rival that of any Olympian. "And I'm Liva," the other sister chimed in, shifting her weight in a way that highlighted her equally impressive physique. "We've been assigned to assist you." Caden straightened, attempting to uphold his professional demeanor. Standing at 6 feet 2 inches with enhanced musculature, he usually towered over others, but these alien warriors matched his height perfectly. "Caden Thorne, Elite Hunter, Earth Division," he introduced himself, extending his hand, only to realize too late that alien cultures might have different customs for greetings. Cloa surprised him by taking his hand. Instead of shaking it, she turned it palm up, examining it with obvious fascination. Her touch sent a shiver up his arm. "Fascinating muscle density," she murmured, pressing her fingers against his forearm. "Liva, feel this?" Before Caden could process the situation, both sisters were studying his arm with a curiosity that felt oddly intimate. "The reports about Earth Warrior's physicality are not exaggerated," Liva commented, tracing a scar on his wrist. "Though I wonder if the other claims are equally true." Caden cleared his throat, gently retrieving his arm. The mission brief mentioned a Class 4 predator in the crater regions. "Always so serious, these Earthmen," Cloa said to her sister with a playful wink. "Yes, we have a shadow stalker loose in the hunting grounds, but first, we should assess our combat compatibility." "Combat compatibility?" Caden repeated, intrigued. Liva stepped closer, her movements graceful yet predatory. "On I-7, warriors must understand each other's strengths before hunting together. It's standard procedure," Cloa added, her smile suggesting more than just protocol. "We wouldn't want any performance issues in the field." Caden felt warmth creep up his face. "I assure you, my combat records speak for themselves." "Records can be misleading," Cloa said, circling him as her eyes scanned his form. "We prefer a hands-on evaluation." Before he could respond, Liva assumed a fighting stance. "Shall we dance, Earth Warriors?" The sparring session that followed was unlike anything Caden had experienced in his extensive training. The sisters moved fluidly, their attacks transforming into defensive maneuvers with astonishing grace. Yet it was their proximity that disoriented him. They fought closer than necessary, with each block feeling like a caress and every counterattack igniting electric contact between their bodies. "Your form is impressive," Cloa commented after executing a throw that left them momentarily entangled. "But you're so tense." "Professional habit," Caden managed, trying to ignore how her breath tickled his ear. Liva swept his legs, but instead of delivering a finishing move, she helped him to his feet, her hand lingering on his chest. "We'll need to work on that. Tension can be quite counterproductive." They trained until the suns began to set, casting deep crimson shadows over the crystalline landscape. Setting up camp near a natural formation of luminescent crystals, their soft glow created an intimate atmosphere, making Caden acutely aware of his unusual situation. "Time for the strength assessment," Cloa announced, producing what appeared to be local fruit from her pack. "A strength assessment?" Caden accepted a piece of the fruit, noting its sweet, intoxicating aroma. "It's a warrior tradition," Liva explained, settling closer to him than strictly necessary. "We share food and stories, testing each other's endurance." "I've heard Earth warriors have remarkable stamina," Cloa added, her silver eyes shimmering in the crystal glow. "Though perhaps that's just another exaggeration." "I assure you," Caden found himself responding, the fruit's juice making his head feel pleasantly light. Earth warriors never disappoint. The sisters exchanged delighted glances. Is that a challenge, Earthman? Liva leaned in, her exotic scent mingling with that of the fruit. Because we do love challenges. Clo finished her sister's thought, moving to Caden's other side. Caden realized he might be in over his head, but for the first time since landing on this alien planet, he wasn't sure it was a bad thing. Tell us, Clo's voice dropped to an intimate whisper. Do all Earth warriors have such firm resolve? Or is that unique to you? Liva added, her hand brushing against his arm as she reached for more fruit. Caden took a deep breath, striving to maintain his professional composure. Perhaps we should discuss tomorrow's hunting strategy. The sisters laughed in perfect harmony. Always so focused on the hunt, Clo teased, when there are so many other interesting things to explore. Liva finished, her eyes sparkling with mischief. As night fell and the crystal's glow intensified, Caden found himself pulled into their playful banter. His usual professional distance began to dissolve under their combined charm. The mission parameters hadn't mentioned anything about encountering two captivating alien warriors eager to test more than just his combat skills. Your culture fascinates us, Clo said later, sitting close to the heating unit. Especially your concept of personal space, which you seem quite fond of maintaining. Liva observed, deliberately shifting closer. Is that an Earth warrior thing, or just you? Caden struggled to focus on the mission ahead, but the lingering effects of the fruit, coupled with the sisters' closeness, made it increasingly difficult to recall why maintaining a professional distance had once seemed so important. I think, Clo declared with a predatory smile, tomorrow's hunt will be very educational for all of us. Liva agreed, her hand finding its way to Caden's shoulder under the pretense of examining his armor. Don't you think so, Caden? The way she said his name, dropping the formal Earth warrior, sent a shiver down his spine. Educational, he echoed, pondering exactly what he had gotten himself into as the night wore on. The sisters continued their subtle, yet relentless exploration of Earth customs, especially those involving personal space and physical contact. Caden realized this mission would be unlike any he had ever faced in his career. With their combat skills and apparent interest in cultural exchange, he sensed that the hunt for the Shadow Stalker would be the least of his challenges on I-7. Rest well, Earth Warrior, Clo said as they finally settled in for the night. As dawn broke over I-7, the twin suns painted the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, bathing the crystalline landscape in warm light. Caden Thorne stirred awake, the soft hum of the heating unit comforting in the cool morning air. The events of the previous night flooded back to him. Clo and Liva's captivating presence, their playful banter, and the tantalizing hints of camaraderie that had formed amidst their training. He sat up, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, and noticed the sisters already moving about their camp. Clo was examining their gear, her silver eyes sharp and alert, while Liva was tending to a small fire, the flames casting flickering shadows across her shimmering blue skin. They looked almost ethereal in the morning light, embodying the essence of this alien world. Good morning, Earth Warrior, Liva called out, her voice light and teasing as she glanced over her shoulder. Did you dream of shadow stalkers? Or perhaps our combat skills? Caden chuckled, shaking his head as he got to his feet. More like the interesting challenges of last night. He could feel his cheeks flush slightly, remembering their closeness, the way their bodies had moved in sync during training. Interesting challenges indeed, Clo replied, a smirk playing on her lips. But we must stay focused on the task ahead. The Shadow Stalker won't wait for us to finish our little game. Caden nodded, taking a moment to gather his gear. Right? So what's the plan? The mission brief mentioned it prefers the crater regions. Liva straightened, her posture shifting from playful to serious. We'll begin by scouting the area around the nearest crater. The Stalker is a master of camouflage, so we'll need to be vigilant. Clo and I will cover the higher ground, while you take the lower paths. We'll communicate using these. She handed him a small, sleek device that resembled a wristwatch. Got it. I'll keep my eyes peeled, Caden said, securing the device on his wrist. The sisters gathered their weapons, their movements efficient and fluid. Caden couldn't help but admire their grace as they prepared for the hunt. As they set off, The landscape of I-7 unfolded before them, a mesmerizing blend of colors and shapes that felt both alien and beautiful. Crystalline structures jutted from the ground like frozen waterfalls, and vibrant flora clung to the rocks, their colors bright against the purples and blues of the terrain. Caden felt a thrill at the thought of exploring this world, but the urgency of the mission kept his focus sharp. They moved quickly, each step deliberate. Caden followed the path that wound between large rock formations, his senses heightened. Every rustle in the underbrush, every flicker of movement drew his attention. The alien atmosphere was alive with sounds, an orchestra of chirps, clicks, and distant roars that reminded him of Earth's wilderness. Reaching the crater's edge, Caden paused to survey the area. The crater was vast, its floor shadowy and uneven. "I'm at the crater's edge," he whispered into his wrist communicator. "I don't see any signs of the shadow stalker yet." "We're almost in position," Cloa replied, her voice smooth and confident. "Liva and I will take the high ground and look for any movement from above. Be careful. It's a predator. It knows how to use the terrain to its advantage," Caden warned, feeling a flicker of protectiveness for the sisters. A moment later, Liva's voice crackled through. "We'll be fine, Earthman. Just keep your eyes open. If you see anything, alert us immediately." Caden nodded, scanning the crater below. Minutes passed, and just as he began to think it was a wild goose chase, a shadow flickered near the far wall of the crater. His heart raced. "I see something," he exclaimed, leaning forward to get a better view. A dark figure moving between the rocks. "Can you get a clear shot?" Cloa asked. Caden tightened his grip on his weapon. "Not yet. It's too well hidden." "Then we'll need to flush it out," Liva suggested, her tone firm. "Cloa, you cover the left side. I'll take the right." Caden, stay in the center and keep a visual on it. As they moved into position, Caden felt the tension in the air. The hunt was on, and the thrill of the chase coursed through him. He glanced over at the sisters. Their eyes were sharp, focused, and alive with adrenaline. Cloa took the lead, moving silently along the crater's edge. Liva mirrored her movements, both of them gliding over the terrain as if it were second nature. Caden followed, his heart pounding with anticipation. Suddenly, the shadow darted forward, revealing itself as the elusive shadow stalker, a sleek, feline creature with iridescent skin that shimmered like oil under the light. It was fast and agile, but Caden was ready. "Now!" he shouted, raising his weapon as the creature made a break for the exit. The sisters sprang into action. Cloa unleashed a flurry of darts from her wrist-mounted launcher, while Liva maneuvered around to cut off its escape. Caden took aim, but before he could pull the trigger, the stalker leapt into the air, twisting gracefully to evade their attacks. "Don't let it get away!" Caden yelled, adrenaline surging as he chased after the creature. They moved as one, a well-coordinated unit despite their differing combat styles. Caden's heart raced as he pushed himself to keep pace, the thrill of the hunt igniting a fire within him. The stalker darted toward a rocky outcrop, but Liva anticipated its path, cutting it off with a powerful leap. The creature skidded to a halt, caught between the two sisters and Caden. "Now, Caden," Cloa urged, her eyes locked on the creature. Caden steadied his aim, his breath coming in quick bursts. The creature growled low, its eyes reflecting the sunlight in a predatory glare. This was it, the moment that would define the hunt. With a swift movement, he fired. The dart flew true, striking the stalker in its flank. The creature let out a sharp cry, but it didn't fall. Instead, it charged at him, fury in its eyes. "Watch out!" Liva shouted, rushing in to intercept it. Caden's heart raced as he fumbled for another dart, but Cloa was faster. She leapt forward, launching another dart that struck true, this time bringing the shadow stalker to its knees. Panting, Caden watched as the creature collapsed, its shimmering form becoming still. The thrill of victory washed over him, mingling with disbelief at how quickly everything had unfolded. "You did well," Cloa said, her voice steady as she approached, examining the creature. "But we can't let our guard down. It might have more tricks up its sleeve." Liva joined them, her eyes shining with excitement. That was incredible. You kept pace with us, Earth Warrior. You have a knack for this. Caden couldn't help but smile, the praise igniting a sense of pride within him. Thanks, but it was a team effort. I couldn't have done it without you both. As they caught their breath and examined the fallen stalker, Caden realized this mission was about more than just hunting. It was a partnership, a blend of skills and strengths that transcended their differences. In the heart of an alien world, surrounded by two formidable warriors, he felt a sense of belonging he hadn't anticipated. The hunt was only just beginning, and he was eager to see where it would lead them next. As the adrenaline from the hunt began to fade, Caden Thorne knelt beside the fallen shadow stalker, his mind racing. The creature's iridescent skin gleamed under the dual suns, revealing intricate patterns that seemed almost otherworldly. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this alien predator than met the eye. We should secure the area, Cloa suggested, her silver eyes scanning the perimeter. There may be others nearby. Liva nodded, glancing toward the crater walls. I'll take the high ground again and keep watch. Caden, you help Cloa with the stalker. Caden felt a swell of gratitude at the trust they placed in him. Got it? Together, he and Cloa examined the creature, noting its muscular build and the almost predatory grace it had displayed during the chase. What do you think? He asked, glancing at Cloa. It seems like it was more than just a predator out here. There's something unique about it. Cloa squatted next to the creature, her fingers gently brushing over its skin. You're right. The markings suggest it's part of a larger ecosystem. These creatures are known to form packs, but they also adapt remarkably well to their environment. This one looks particularly strong. Caden frowned. If it's part of a pack, then we should be extra cautious. They could come after us if they sense their companion is in danger. Cloa nodded, her expression serious. Exactly. That's why we need to move quickly. I'll scan it for any tracking devices. She pulled out a small, handheld scanner and began to work over the creature's body. As she focused on her task, Caden's gaze wandered over the surrounding landscape. The beauty of I-7 was mesmerizing, with its crystalline formations and vibrant vegetation. Yet, there was an undercurrent of tension that lingered in the air, as if the land itself was aware of their presence. After a few moments, Cloa looked up, her brows furrowed. No tracking devices, but look at this. She pointed to a set of intricate patterns on the creature's side. These markings could indicate it belongs to a specific pack or tribe. There might be more out there. Caden leaned in closer, tracing the lines with his finger. If we can figure out what these markings mean, it might give us an advantage in understanding their behavior. Cloa nodded, her excitement palpable. We should take some samples, skin, fur, maybe even blood. It could help us learn more about the shadow stalkers and their ecosystem. Caden felt a surge of enthusiasm. I'll gather what we need. He retrieved a small container from his pack, ready to collect samples. Just then, Liva returned, her voice low and urgent. We got company? Caden and Cloa exchanged worried glances. How many? Caden asked, gripping his weapon tighter. 3 or 4, moving fast. They're approaching from the northwest, Liva replied, her eyes scanning the rocky outcrop. I think they've picked up on the scent of their fallen comrade. Caden's heart raced. We need to leave now. Cloa nodded, quickly finishing her sample collection. I'll secure the creature's remains so we can retrieve them later. How do we handle them if they show up? Caden asked, anxiety creeping into his voice. We'll have to outsmart them, Liva said, her demeanor shifting to one of calm confidence. Stay low and move quietly. If we can get to higher ground, we might be able to evade them. With a nod of agreement, they quickly secured their gear and positioned themselves behind a cluster of boulders, keeping their eyes trained on the approaching figures. As the shadow stalkers emerged from the foliage, Caden felt a chill run down his spine. The creatures were similar in appearance to the one they had just subdued, but they were larger, their movements more coordinated. It was clear they were a pack, their senses keen and alert. Stay still, Liva whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. Caden held his breath, the tension in the air palpable as the pack of shadow stalkers prowled closer. Their eyes glowed with a fierce intelligence, and he could see the muscles rippling beneath their iridescent skin. "They're communicating," Cloa murmured, her silver eyes wide with wonder. "Look at the way they're moving. They're signaling each other." Caden's heart raced as he observed the creatures. They were circling the area, their postures relaxed, but their senses acutely aware. The fallen stalkers' pack seemed to have formed a perimeter, sniffing the air and scanning their surroundings. "We need to create a diversion," Caden whispered, glancing at Cloa. "If we can draw them away from the crater, we might escape." Liva considered this for a moment, then nodded. "We can use rocks to create a noise. Caden, you take the left side, and Cloa and I will head right. When I give the signal, we throw the rocks." Caden's mind raced with possibilities. "And then we regroup at the high ground?" "Exactly," Liva confirmed. "Stay close to the shadows and be quick." With a plan in place, Caden crept toward the left side, his heart pounding in his chest. The shadow stalkers were still sniffing around, but their attention was mostly on the remains of their fallen comrade. Liva signaled, and with a quick flick of his wrist, Caden hurled a rock toward a nearby thicket. The sound echoed through the air, causing the stalkers to perk up and turn their heads. Cloa and Liva followed suit, throwing their rocks in opposite directions. The noise startled the creatures, and in an instant, they broke from their circle, moving towards the sound. "Now!" Liva hissed, and they sprinted toward the high ground, adrenaline surging through their veins. Caden could hear the growls of the shadow stalkers behind them, the pack's confusion quickly turning into a furious chase. They climbed higher, the crystalline surface glimmering beneath their feet as they reached a rocky outcrop overlooking the crater. Caden paused for a moment, catching his breath and looking back. The shadow stalkers had gathered near the thicket, their bodies tense as they sniffed the air, but they seemed unsure of where to go next. "We need to remain quiet," Cloa warned, her voice barely a whisper. Liva nodded, her eyes trained on the creatures. "They're still searching for us. We should stay put until they settle down." As they watched from their vantage point, the pack began to disperse, moving cautiously in the direction of the noise. Caden felt a wave of relief wash over him. "We did it," he murmured, glancing at Cloa and Liva, who looked equally relieved. "Not quite yet," Cloa replied, still scanning the area. "We need to make sure they're fully gone before we move." Minutes ticked by, the tension slowly easing as the shadow stalkers vanished into the foliage. Finally, Liva sighed and turned to her companions. "I think it's safe now, but we should be mindful of where we go next. This encounter could mean they'll be more aggressive if they sense intruders." Caden nodded in agreement, the thrill of the hunt still echoing in his veins. "We should continue our exploration, but keep our guard up. There's a lot we don't know about these creatures or their territory." Cloa smiled, her eyes glinting with excitement. "Agreed. And we have samples to analyze too. Let's find a safe spot to regroup and figure out our next steps." As they descended from their perch, Caden couldn't shake the feeling that the day had just begun. This mission was evolving into something far more complex than he had anticipated. The bond between them deepened with each challenge they faced together, and he found himself eager for whatever lay ahead on this alien world. Together, they made their way toward the next adventure, the vibrant landscapes of I-7 waiting to reveal their secrets. As Caden, Cloa, and Liva descended from their rocky vantage point, the atmosphere of I-7 shifted, the air thick with anticipation. The crystalline formations that had once dazzled under the twin suns now stood like silent sentinels, their luminescence fading as dusk approached. "Let's head toward the Whispering Forest," Liva suggested, glancing at the horizon where a dense thicket of bioluminescent trees loomed. "If there's any place where we can gather more intelligence about the shadow stalkers, it'll be there. They're known to hunt in those woods." Caden nodded, the allure of the forest pulling at his curiosity. "I've read that it's full of strange flora and fauna. We might even discover something new." Cloa grinned, her silver eyes sparkling with excitement. "Exactly. It'll be like exploring an alien wonderland. But we should stay vigilant. If the shadow stalkers are in the area, we don't want to become their next targets." With renewed determination, the trio set off toward the forest. The path twisted through a vibrant landscape filled with bizarre plants that shimmered in shades of teal and violet, their leaves whispering in the gentle breeze. As they moved deeper into the terrain, the sounds of the environment enveloped them. The rustling of foliage, the distant calls of unseen creatures, and the soft, melodic hum that seemed to emanate from the very ground beneath their feet. "Do you hear that?" Caden asked, pausing to listen more closely. Cloa nodded, her expression contemplative. "It sounds almost like the forest is alive, doesn't it? The plants here seem to resonate with one another." "It's said that the whispering forest communicates with its inhabitants," Liva replied, her voice low as they stepped into the shade of the towering trees. "There are even tales of it guiding lost travelers back to safety." Caden chuckled lightly. "I guess we'll need to keep our wits about us then. We wouldn't want to get lost in an enchanted forest." As they ventured deeper, the forest opened up into a clearing illuminated by a soft, ethereal glow. A pool of iridescent water sat in the center, reflecting the swirling colors of the trees above. The air was heavy with the scent of sweet, floral aromas, intoxicating in their richness. "Look at that!" Cloa exclaimed, pointing to a cluster of strange, glowing flowers lining the water's edge. Their petals pulsed with a rhythm that seemed synchronized with the whispers surrounding them. Caden knelt beside the pool, captivated by the sight. "They're beautiful," he said, reaching out to touch one of the flowers. As his fingers brushed the surface, a soft vibration traveled through him, and the whispers intensified. "Careful," Liva cautioned, stepping closer. "Some of the flora in this forest can be unpredictable. We don't want to provoke anything." Caden pulled his hand back, glancing up at Liva. "Right? Good call. It's easy to get lost in the beauty here." Cloa stepped forward, her curiosity getting the better of her. "What if we gather samples? We might learn more about how the ecosystem here interacts with the shadow stalkers." Caden nodded, feeling a thrill of excitement. "That's a great idea. We should document everything we find." As they began to collect samples, the whispers grew louder, swirling around them like an unseen tide. Caden felt an inexplicable pull toward the heart of the forest, a sense that there was something deeper waiting to be discovered. "Cloa," he said, glancing back at her, "do you feel that? Like the forest is calling to us?" She paused, her expression thoughtful. "I do. It's as if it wants to share its secrets. But we should be cautious. We don't want to stray too far from each other." Just then Liva, who had wandered slightly ahead, raised her hand. "Guys, come over here. You need to see this." Caden and Cloa hurried to her side, where Liva stood before a massive tree, its trunk twisted and gnarled, roots sprawling like the fingers of a giant. Embedded in its bark were glowing symbols that pulsed softly, resonating with the whispers in the air. "What is this?" Caden breathed, stepping closer to examine the markings. "It looks like a form of writing," Cloa said, her eyes wide with wonder. "Perhaps it's a record of the forest's history or its inhabitants." Liva nodded, her expression serious. "We should document this. It might provide clues about the shadow stalkers and their connection to this ecosystem." Caden pulled out his data pad, carefully recording the symbols. As he focused, he felt a warmth radiate from the tree, almost as if it were alive and aware of their presence. Suddenly, a rustling sound broke the tranquility, drawing their attention back to the perimeter of the clearing. Caden felt his heart race as shadows shifted among the trees. "Stay alert," Liva whispered, positioning herself between Caden and the sound. Cloa instinctively moved closer to Caden, her hand brushing against his arm, sending a spark of energy through him. "Do you think it's the shadow stalkers?" "Could be," Caden replied, his voice low. "We should prepare for anything." As they scanned the area, the rustling grew louder, and from the depths of the forest emerged a figure, tall, with iridescent skin and an elegant stance. It was unlike anything Caden had ever seen, a creature that seemed both beautiful and fearsome, its features sharp and otherworldly. The being paused at the edge of the clearing, its luminous eyes locking onto Caden's with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. "Stay behind me," Liva instructed, her tone firm as she stepped forward, ready to confront the unknown. But the creature raised its hands in a gesture of peace, a melodic hum escaping its lips. The whispers around them softened, and Caden felt the tension in the air dissipate. "What is it doing?" Cloa asked, her curiosity piqued. "I don't know," Caden replied, intrigued yet wary. "But it seems to want to communicate." The creature stepped closer, its movements graceful and fluid. Caden could see that it bore the same markings as the shadow stalkers, suggesting a deeper connection to the beings they had encountered. "What are you?" Liva demanded, her voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling in the clearing. The creature's eyes flickered, and it began to speak in a language that resonated with the very essence of the forest. To Caden, it felt like music, notes dancing through the air, wrapping around him in an embrace. Cloa looked at Caden, her eyes wide. "Can you understand it?" Caden shook his head, entranced by the creature's presence. "Not exactly, but it feels familiar, almost like it's trying to convey a feeling." The creature tilted its head, and for a moment, the world around them faded. Caden felt a connection, an understanding beyond words, as if the creature were inviting them to learn its secrets. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the being stepped back, its gaze lingering on Caden and Cloa before it vanished into the shadows of the whispering forest. "What just happened?" Liva asked, looking bewildered. "I think it was trying to communicate," Caden replied, his heart racing. "There's something profound about this place, and that creature, it's connected to everything here." Cloa stepped closer to Caden, her excitement palpable. "We need to follow it. If it leads us to the heart of the forest, we might uncover even more secrets." Liva considered this for a moment, her expression cautious. "We should be careful. There's no telling what lies deeper within." Caden felt a surge of determination. "I agree with Cloa. This could be the key to understanding the shadow stalkers and their behavior. We have to pursue this." With a shared sense of purpose, they made their way deeper into the whispering forest, the glow of the trees guiding them as they followed the mysterious creature's path. The whispers around them grew louder once more, echoing through the air like a promise of discovery. As they moved forward, Caden couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something extraordinary, a journey that would intertwine their fates with the secrets of I-7. The adventure was just beginning, and he felt more alive than ever, ready to uncover the truths hidden within the alien wilderness. As Caden, Cloa, and Liva ventured deeper into the whispering forest, the atmosphere shifted once more, growing heavier with the promise of discovery and danger. The glowing symbols on the ancient trees seemed to guide them, pulsing in response to their movements, drawing them closer to the heart of the forest. With each step, the vibrant colors around them deepened, the bioluminescent flora illuminating their path in soft hues of blue and green. The melodic whispers intensified, forming a symphony of sound that resonated with the very essence of the forest. Caden could feel it in his bones, a primal energy that urged him forward, beckoning him to uncover the truths that lay hidden within this enchanting yet treacherous environment. "Do you think we'll find the creature again?" Cloa asked, her voice barely above a whisper as she glanced back at Caden, her silver eyes sparkling with anticipation. It felt like it was leading us somewhere important. Caden nodded, his gaze fixed on the path ahead. "I believe it was. There's something significant about its presence. If we can understand what it wants, we might learn more about the shadow stalkers and their connection to this place." Liva, ever vigilant, surveyed their surroundings. "Just remember, we need to stay cautious. The forest may be beautiful, but it's also filled with dangers we don't yet understand." As they pressed on, a chilling breeze swept through the trees, sending a shiver down Caden's spine. He sensed that they were drawing near to something powerful, something that might reveal the truth about the shadow stalkers and the mysterious creature they had encountered. After what felt like hours of navigating the winding trails, they finally reached a clearing bathed in an ethereal glow. In the center stood a massive tree, its trunk wider than a house, adorned with the same glowing symbols they had seen before. The air around it hummed with energy, vibrating with an intensity that made the hairs on the back of Caden's neck stand on end. "This is it," he breathed, stepping closer to the tree. "This must be the heart of the forest." Cloa's eyes widened as she approached the base of the tree, her fingers brushing against the symbols. "These markings, they're ancient. If we can decipher them, we might uncover the forest's secrets." Liva positioned herself protectively near the edge of the clearing, her senses on high alert. "Let's not lose sight of our primary mission. We still need to find out about the shadow stalkers." Suddenly, the whispers grew louder, swirling around them like a tempest. Caden felt the vibrations in the air pulse through his body, urging him to connect with the ancient tree. As he placed his hand on the bark, a surge of energy flowed through him, and visions flooded his mind. He saw the shadow stalkers, dark and elusive figures, moving through the forest like phantoms. He saw them hunting, not just for sustenance, but for something more, something they believed was theirs by right. The connection to the luminous trees and the creatures of the forest became clear. The stalkers were protectors of this land, bound to it by an ancient pact. "Caden," Cloa's voice broke through his reverie. "What's happening?" He stumbled back, gasping for breath as the images faded. "The shadow stalkers, they're not just predators. They're guardians. This forest is sacred to them, and they believe they have a right to defend it against intruders." Liva frowned, crossing her arms. "But we're not here to intrude. We're here to help. If they feel threatened by us, we need to find a way to communicate that we mean no harm." The whispers shifted again, forming coherent words that resonated within the clearing. "Protectors of the light, you seek the shadows. But know this: the balance of this land must be maintained." Caden looked around, bewildered. "Did you hear that?" Cloa nodded, her eyes wide. "The forest is speaking to us. It's warning us," Liva said, her voice steady but urgent. "We must tread carefully." The air shimmered, and suddenly, the creature they had encountered earlier materialized from the shadows of the massive tree, its form more defined this time. "You have ventured far, Earth warriors. Why do you seek the shadow stalkers?" Caden stepped forward, his heart racing. "We came to learn about them, to understand their connection to this forest. We didn't mean to intrude." The creature regarded them with luminous eyes, studying their intentions. "The shadow stalkers are bound to this land, protectors of its secrets. Your presence has stirred the balance, and they grow wary. To maintain peace, you must show your respect." Cloa shifted closer to Caden, her voice unwavering. "What can we do? We want to help, not harm." The creature paused, then gestured toward the glowing symbols on the tree. "The knowledge you seek lies within these markings. To honor the forest and the shadow stalkers, you must understand its history. Only then can you prove your intentions." Caden nodded, determination surging within him. "We'll decipher the symbols. We'll learn what we can to show our respect." As they began to study the markings, the creature watched over them, a silent guardian. The whispers transformed into a harmonious melody, guiding their thoughts as they deciphered the ancient language, revealing stories of unity between the shadow stalkers and the forest, a bond forged in times of old. Hours passed, and as dawn broke, casting a soft light through the treetops, they completed their task. The stories unfurled before them like a tapestry, depicting the shadow stalkers as not just predators, but as integral stewards of the land. "We understand now," Caden said, looking up at the creature. "The shadow stalkers protect the balance of this ecosystem. They are not our enemies, but allies in this world." The creature nodded slowly, a glimmer of approval in its eyes. "You have shown understanding and respect for the forest. Now, the shadow stalkers will recognize your intentions." As if summoned by the revelation, dark figures emerged from the tree-line, their forms fluid and silent. The shadow stalkers approached cautiously, eyes gleaming with curiosity. Caden took a deep breath, stepping forward to meet them. "We mean no harm. We wish to help protect this forest alongside you." The lead stalker paused, studying Caden with piercing intensity. Slowly, it lowered its guard, a gesture of acceptance. The others followed suit, and the tension that had gripped the clearing began to dissipate. Clo stepped beside Caden, her voice steady. Together, we can ensure the safety of this land. We can protect the balance. The lead stalker inclined its head, and the whispers transformed into a soft chorus of approval from the trees around them. Caden felt a sense of relief wash over him. They had broken through the barrier of misunderstanding, forging a bond that transcended their differences. As the sun rose higher, illuminating the clearing in warm light, Caden realized that this journey was more than just a mission. It was an awakening, a connection to a world that was vibrant and alive, filled with stories yet to be told. "Thank you," Caden said, turning to the creature and the shadow stalkers, "for trusting us. We will honor this alliance." As they stood together in the clearing, the forest echoed with the promise of a new beginning. The shadows that once loomed ominously now felt like allies, and the whispers of the forest became a symphony of hope. In that moment, Caden knew they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, united in purpose and spirit. The adventure had only just begun, and together, they would protect the secrets of I-7. And as they set off toward the horizon, Caden felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, but also the thrill of possibility. They would forge a path forward, not just as warriors, but as guardians of a world that had welcomed them with open arms.